All right, the first type of psychotherapy, or the first school of thought in psychotherapy that we're going to talk about, is the psychodynamic approach, which I mentioned previously when we talked about personality, we talked about Freud. All right, so the psychodynamic approach, we can trace this back to Sigmund Freud. He really was that pioneer who kind of gave us our conventional view of therapy, and he used the term, the talking cure, the idea that people could talk about their problems, their conflicts, and that could lead to a reduction in their symptoms. And so psychodynamic therapy, it views the symptoms of a disorder as side effects of a deeper underlying problem that needs to be resolved. So they are less symptom focused and more focused on getting into the deeper causes of your symptoms. We're going to talk about other approaches that are more symptom focused. This one is more like, okay, the symptoms are just a reflection of something that's going on with you. These are your specific symptoms, but they're hints about something else, and we need to do a lot of work to figure out that something else. Now, Freud's original version was called Psychoanalysis, and it had a strong emphasis on the unconscious, and that a lot of your drives, your underlying causes, were things that you didn't have access to. You needed a professional therapist or a psychoanalyst to help you uncover those causes. Now, some things about psychoanalysis. Freud felt that, we have ego defense mechanisms that block our access to these underlying causes. And so he wanted to break down those defenses. He wanted to put the patient in sort of a relaxed, comfortable state so their defenses can come down and they can maybe let some of that unconscious material, those conflicts, to come out. And so he emphasized this thing called free association. So free association is when you just let information out. You let your true drives, your true motivations out without the ego blocking it, essentially. And so he believed that the best form of free association was dream analysis, where patients, and by the way, psychoanalysis took a long time. You would visit the analyst very frequently for a long time, and you'd sit on the couch. That's where we get the traditional model of sitting on the couch for therapy. And then one of the things that he would have, in addition to talking about your childhood, it'd say, tell me about your dreams. And so the patient would report back about their dreams, and the dreams were supposed to be a window into the unconscious. And dreams had two different types of content, right? One is latent content and the other is manifest content. Now, latent content is the hidden meaning of the dream, the true meaning of the dream, you might say. Manifest content is the easier stuff to access. That's the obvious content of the dream. So you might say, oh yeah, I dreamed that I went to work naked. All right, the manifest content is, hey, you went to work naked. But what is the latent content? Freud might focus on, oh, why were you naked? Naked could mean vulnerability. Let's talk about the deeper meaning of this. So that's the gist of what you would see with dream analysis. Now, some other things that Freud talked about are resistance and transference. Resistance, you see this with friends all the time. You start talking about something uncomfortable, like, I don't want to talk about that right now. That's the idea with resistance. Resistance is where you change the subject. You avoid talking about the more difficult topics. And Freud believed if they were difficult, they were the ones that needed to be talked about because they're stirring up something in your unconscious. So he would try to direct the patient back to talking about whatever they were resisting. And he also talked about transference. Sometimes you react to the therapist as you would be reacting to other people in your life. Like maybe you're mad at your boss and you're lashing out at your therapist, and there's no reason for you to be lashing out at your psychoanalyst. And it might be, oh, that's transference. You're transferring those feelings from that one person onto the therapist. Common sources of transference could be your parents, talking to the therapist, that's what you always do, mom or dad, that sort of thing. All right, so that's the basics of the psychodynamic approach. And again, you want to know more, we do have a class on my campus about clinical psychology that would go into more detail about this. All right. Next video will be about the humanistic approach.